Let's study about a new chapter called The Changing Face of the Earth. Earth is a highly dynamic and active planet. On the Earth, there are different forces which are continuous and working constantly, and these forces are changing the face of the Earth. So, these forces are varied and they affect the face of the Earth very differently. These forces are divided into two categories. So Earth's movements are divided into endogenic or internal forces, exogenic or external forces. First, let's understand about the endogenic forces. These forces arise from inside of the Earth, inner surfaces of the Earth. They are sudden and examples are earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, forces of the mountains, buildings, etc. Next is plate tectonics. So there is a theory of plate tectonics. Let's understand what is plate tectonics. The lithosphere, the land, it is broken into small number of pieces known as tectonics or lithospheric plates. These plates, they float on the semi-molten rocks, that is on the lava rocks. They float on the lower portion of the upper mantle, that is inner surface of the earth, which is also known as asthenosphere. So these plates are floating and always moving also. So that asthenosphere has temperature of about 1600 degrees centigrade, which is very high temperature. So at this temperature the rocks are in a molten state, that is semi-liquid state, and they can flow in a thick and viscous way. Let's study about the formation of convection cells. So when there is heat inside the surface of the earth, in the crust, in the mantle, this heat sets some disturbances known as convection cells in the mantle of the earth, that is inner crust of the earth. So these convection cells, they are formed due to rising currents of the heated magma. There is semi-liquid magma flowing, right? Because of that flowing magma, there are currents rising, and these result in formation of the convection cells. And when this semi-liquid substance known as magma, it reaches the top of the surface of the earth, it cools down, it becomes heavy, and again it goes into the inner surface of the earth only to get heated and rise once again. So these rising currents of heated magma cause the tectonic plates floating on the asthenosphere to move around, slide, collide and pull away from each other. So the rising currents of the heated magma cause the tectonic plates to float and also to slide, collide and pull away from each other. So these plates, if they move towards each other, they form as convergent plates. For example, Himalayas and Andes mountains. So they are nothing but two convergent plates come together and form a high rising surface over the surface of the earth, which are known as mountains. Examples are Himalayas and Andes mountains. And if these tectonic plates move away from each other, then they create a crack sort of thing on the earth's surface. Example is Mariana Trench. So they create something called divergent plates. So this is how convection currents cause the rising magma to flow and collide. This is the inner surface of the earth. This is the upper surface of the earth. So this is a diverging plate causing a trench. And then mountain forms due to convergent plates, right? So there are forces acting on that, on mountain building. These forces are slow and continuous, and forces are of two types, folding forces and faulting forces. So what is folding force? When two tectonic plates push against each other, they land up at a point of contact and then they form a series of folds. These series of folds form mountains known as fold mountains. Example, Himalayas, Alps, Andes, etc. And what is faulting force? When rocks are compressed beyond a point, they develop cracks or fractures. They are known as faults. So these faults develop due to forces of tension and when the plates are pulled apart. So when land is pushed up between these two fault lines, block mountains are created. So folding mountains have pointed ends. Faulting mountains are block mountains. They do not have pointed sharp edges at the top. So example of block mountains are Black Forest Mountains in the Germany. And then when land subsides between these two fault lines, valleys are formed. Examples are valleys of Narmada and Tapti rivers. So this is a fold mountain which is having sharp edges at the top. Next is earthquakes. So these earthquakes are caused by the disturbances which arise inside the surface of the earth. So earthquake means a sudden movement on the surface of the earth, beneath the surface of the earth, like rupture of soft. So there are disturbances which originate inside the surface of the earth. So there is sudden movement, right, whenever earthquake happens. So what happens in the earth? There is rupture of the rocks, collision of the tectonic plates, and enormous more amount of energy is released in the form of seismic waves or shock waves. So earthquakes are measured on a scale, right, on a Richter scale. So seismic waves are of two types, surface waves and body waves. Severity of an earthquake Severity of an earthquake is indicated by a number on the Richter scale. So if the earthquake measures below 4 on the Richter scale, then it is known as a mild tremors or a mild earthquakes. Then if it is above 6, it is a moderate tremor. Then it is considered as a severe earthquake and it will be very disastrous. Next is volcano. Volcano also causes changes in the face of the earth. Volcano is nothing but it is an opening in the earth's crust, in the inner surface of the earth. Crust means through which molten rock, gases, all these come up from the inside surfaces of the earth. This activity is also known as volcanism. Volcanoes are classified into three types based on their frequency of eruption. They are active volcanoes, dormant volcanoes and extinct volcanoes. Active volcanoes are those that have erupted recently. Example, Mount Etna, Mount Stromboli of the Mediterranean Sea. Dormant volcanoes are those which have been quiet for a long time, but there are signs that they could erupt again. Example, Mount Vesuvius. Extinct volcanoes are those volcanoes which show absolutely no indication of the future eruption. The craters are extinct volcanoes which are filled with water and form lakes called calderas. This is an image of active volcano, this is a dormant volcano and this is an extinct volcano which has formed a lake. How are volcanoes distributed around the world? They are found mainly in the Pacific Ocean around a round circular route known as Pacific Ring of Fire. So in India, the only volcano is present on the barren island on Andaman. It had erupted. Let's study about the exogenetic forces which change the face of the earth. There are natural forces such as rivers, waves, wind and glaciers. These are known as the agents of the gradation or denudation. So they are known as the agents of gradation or denudation. So these erosional activity degrades the land and then depositional activity aggravates the land. Suppose if there is erosion, then land surface will be degraded, and if there is deposition, the land surface will be aggravated. So in this process, the features on the face of the land undergo changes. So even if there is soil erosion, changes takes place. Even if there is soil deposition, changes takes place. So these are only exogenetic forces. So first let's see about rivers. So rivers function as agents of gradation. How do they function? They function as agents of gradation in three ways. They erode away the rock surface, then they transport this eroded material and deposit it at some other place. So that is how rivers function. While flowing, they wash away the surfaces of the rock. That means erosion, and this eroded material will be transported and then it will go and deposit at further place during the course of the flow of the river. So what are the stages in a river's life? Rivers start flowing from the mountains, right, and then they flow into the plains and finally end into a sea. So there are three stages in a river's life: upper course, middle course and lower course. Upper course of the river. Its river starts as a stream, flows down the steep flows and causes the erosion activity, and then rivers form a narrow gorges or V-shaped valleys. This is the upper course. Then during the middle course of the river, some small tributaries join it. So the river becomes larger because some tributaries, sub-rivers join the main river. Erosional and deposition activities are largely balanced in the middle course of the river. And this river mainly transports large amounts of eroded materials. And in the lower course of the rivers flow very slowly. It flows over the flat plains as it nears the sea, it ends in the sea, and it deposits its load of eroded materials at this stage. And it is slow moving and doesn't carry great load. So whatever eroded material is there, it gets deposited in the lower course of the lower course of the river, and this river ends into the sea at the lower course. What are the features caused by river erosion? So rivers erode the rocks, right, while flowing. So rivers break up the rocks in which they flow and erode them. So in two ways river break up the rocks, through mechanical erosion and through chemical erosion. Next comes valleys. Valleys are of different shapes, and valleys are formed by the result of erosive activity of the river during the upper and the middle course. There are three types of valleys: I-shaped valleys, V-shaped valleys and U-shaped valleys. I-shaped valleys, also known as canyons. These are formed when a river cuts out a narrow valley with steep walls. So it is a narrow valley with steep walls. Next is V-shaped valley. V-shaped valleys are formed when the rivers are young and flowing is there continuously. So this erosion is a vertical type of erosion in the V-shaped valleys, and also horizontal erosion is also there. This erosion only gives the river a V shape. U-shaped valleys are formed during the middle course of the river, and then the river widens and horizontally it erodes away the valley floors. Here the type of erosion is glacial erosion. So here level flooring will be there and steep sides will be there. Next is waterfalls. When there is a steep drop, sudden drop in the course of the river, so then the water rushes down the drop with a great force and then forms a waterfall. When there is a steep drop in the course of the river, then water rushes down suddenly, forming a waterfall. Waterfall also forms if earthquakes are created. So if earthquake is caused, then also waterfalls may form, creating a drop in the course of the river. So when waterfalls are formed, the water moves with great force, right? So this great force results in erosion of the rock material beneath. When this great force is flowing, the waterfall is there and there is a great force in the flowing water. What happens? All the rocks will be eroded and a depression will be created over the rocks. This depression which is created over the rocks will be known as plunge pool. So here this is the formation of a waterfall. This is the image of a waterfall. So this is sudden drop in the water. What are the features caused by deposition? They are known as meanders and oxbow lakes. Meanders are formed in the lower course of the river when it is going to meet the sea, and this is loaded with very many debris. That is why the river is very slow flowing. This is the image of a meanders. Then comes oxbow lakes. So there is continuous erosion on the concave side and there is deposition on the convex side, which creates a loop type of impression from the main river and leads to the formation of a oxbow lake. So here this is like a loop and this is a oxbow lake. So floodplain is formed as a result of rivers flooding into the banks. Because there is a lot of load of debris, some of the river deposits come out of its bed and then it raises the level of the water so that it reaches almost the top of the river banks. So we see at the beaches, right, some of the river comes at the corners and then deposits also come. So this raised banks of the river which are flowing through the floodplains are called leaves. Leaves are nothing but raised banks of